Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Transform Now podcast. I'm your host, Michael Marchuk,
And I'm Brad Hairston.
and this is our Pulse Check weekly, doing our AI and automation news roundup. So we got 5 articles, so we're just going to dive right into it. That's okay with you, Brad?
Let's do it.
All right, excellent. So this one here is from Yahoo News. Actually came from Fortune, but it's going through Yahoo News. It is from Sam Altman, who says, Sam Altman says, Gen Z are the, quote, luckiest kids in history thanks to AI, despite mounting job displacement dread. And he makes some interesting points in this article related to how this is really an unprecedented time for teens and Gen Zers to kind of look at their future and take hold of it. But they're also seeing, especially those who are just graduating college, how the job market doesn't look super great for them. So what are your thoughts on this? Because I know I've got a couple thoughts, so I'd like to hear what yours are.
Yeah, so this one really resonated with me because I just had literally 2 days ago had a discussion with my 2 adult sons about this very topic. And I didn't maybe make the same argument that Sam Altman did. His is going to be much more profound and technologically based. But I did make the point to them. And by the way, I have a millennial son and a Gen Z son, so I have one of each. I told them that, if I were them, I wouldn't be dreading and fearing the future because things are changing so dramatically. And all they read is negative stuff, right? In the press about AI and jobs going away and layoffs and this and that. And so I really tried to push them in the direction of thinking about the cognitive skills that you have, the areas of your work where you're bringing your intuition, your decision making, your strategic thinking, your empathy. All those things contribute, and that's where you need to focus. You need to continue to, build your skills there. You need to differentiate yourself there because everything else around you, let's be honest, is going to be automated. It's going to be taken over with AI and automation.
And we're going to get to that article in a minute. But
yeah. So that was my conversation. Then I see this article, and I'm like, wow, Sam's somewhat making the same point. He's acknowledging the fact that there is a lot of dread, a lot of fear of what's happening, especially for those that are in college right now or about to go into college. But he's saying, this is also going to present unprecedented opportunities for young people. I mean, things that you and I, Michael, would have never even envisioned or dreamed about. And so he's really, promoting this idea that, don't lose heart. Instead, think about the opportunities, think about the ways that you can bring your creativity and your intuition forward and look at the way that you can do things that your fathers and grandfathers and grandmothers and others, before you weren't able to do. I mean, you can start a company now with relative ease and carry that forward. Whereas before it was like only a very small few that had the ability to really be entrepreneurs and go get funding and build something. I mean, you look at all of the startup companies that are every single day, launching. It's really amazing. Even last week, I interviewed a young man from a venture firm in California. They go to the leading companies and they work with them to figure out what their most pressing issues are. And then they essentially build a startup company to solve it. And it's surprise, agentic AI driven, but they go get money, they get a CEO, they get this company. And then the company that they built it for has the opportunity to invest in it. And many times they do, sometimes they don't. But you've got a new company launched in the context of that. I mean, that's the kind of thing that is possible today that would have been so hard to do, 10, 15, 20 years ago. So yeah, I think I agree with Sam. I agree with his, it's not just because he's, CEO of one of the largest technology companies in the world, but the fact that, he sees more optimism, more solutions out there that are unlike anything we've been able to accomplish, in the history of mankind. And he is encouraging young people to pursue that and to look at the positive and don't be, scared away by all the talk about, how occupations and other things are completely going away.
So I'm going to take the Kool-Aid away from you just for a minute.
Please
because
do.
You've obviously
I'm
drank
drinking
a lot of it.
I'm drinking lots of it.
And I'm going to come with a different perspective.
Mm-hmm.
So assume you have a Gen Z who lives in Cleveland, not in San Francisco. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I bet the perspective is extremely different
Mm-hmm.
because from Sam Alton's perspective, especially within the valley there, you are getting people who are being raised on this mentality. It's very, very common. It's a cultural thing that's very, very deeply ingrained in that area.
Yeah.
You go to Cleveland or to Manchester, UK, or somewhere else, you may have a very different perspective than Sam Altman does.
Yeah.
Because of the education you've been raised on, the fact that your parents aren't working in the latest hot startup environment. They may be working in a factory somewhere or as nurses in a hospital, and they don't have that same kind of perspective. So I absolutely agree with him that the opportunities are there, but we're not helping our Gen Zers understand those opportunities because we've locked them into an educational mindset that doesn't promote that in most other places.
That's a fair point. And by the way, no offense, Cleveland. Please don't write it.
Exactly.
Write us or post us, people from Cleveland. Well, I agree with that. I think, this article is really kind of laser focused on people maybe like going into higher ed or maybe, starting their careers. And I do think it's causing a lot of introspection around, should I go become an accountant? For example, if all the experts are saying accounting will be fully automated within 5 to 10 years, should I go and, work in this area that are all like heavily being transformed by AI? Right. Certainly it's a different evaluation and planning system than it was, years ago when you just looked at any occupation and you kind of pursued your passion and whatever that may be. The article also does mention, and we've seen this in some other articles you and I have covered, but Altman has been very vocal recently and very, very honest about some of the issues and concerns he has, like fraud, the fraud crisis that has really started exploding related to AI. And then you have other cybersecurity challenges, and then you have quantum computing coming, which will make all of our password encryption obsolete. I mean, there are real issues and concerns that need to be addressed by each society and each government around the world and each company for that matter. But yeah, I took the positive from this article. I think a lot of what Altman is saying makes sense. The fact that he's saying we need to approach, I'm reading the quote, we need to navigate the future with a great degree of humility and openness to new solutions. I love that. I think that's very well said.
Agreed. And all I can say is, for those folks who may not be in the hotbed of technology, you still do have the same opportunity. You just need to understand how you may need to ingrain that culture yourself and look to another inspiration to help you grow that kind of fire within your belly. So
good advice.
Speaking of the stuff that's going to get automated, our next article is from Harvard Business Review. So this is interesting. It says, what gets measured, AI will automate. And I thought this was a very, very interesting article. The author put a lot of really good perspectives in a very, very succinct way in this article. So again, as you all know, these are going to be linked to the show notes. So please read these yourself because it's very, very interesting, really, scratching the surface on some of these things here. But the way they approach this in terms of how AI is being applied or how it will be applied to everything that's measured. Anything that does get measured, AI is really good at numbers, and those numbers then will make it lean towards more of this automated component. So, Brad, how did you understand this article, and what were your perspectives on it?
So back in my business intelligence consulting days, we used to say, what gets measured gets done. So I suppose this is the new version of that. What gets measured gets automated. And I like the article. The author is the founder of the MIT Crypto Economics Lab, whatever that is. So he's clearly a brilliant guy.
Way too bright for me. So I'm glad that you understood what he does.
So he's clearly a brilliant guy, and yet he's coming to us here with a very simple but very profound idea. And that is, as you said, that the environment that, all environments are getting extensively measured and codified, whether that's laws or tax codes or, new regulations, streams of sensor data, from street lamps and street lights and, everywhere we go. I mean, all of this is quantifying the world around us. And in essence, any job that can be measured can, in theory, be automated. So that's the argument he's making. And he presses into it pretty deep. He even says, it used to be that if you were in one of the real deep, disciplines like law or medicine or academia, people would leave you alone. They would never imply that those professions were at risk. But he says, hey, all of those professions are quantifiable to a heavy degree. So even those things should be automatable, and some of them are even seeing it now. So the article gives some really good advice. Before I talk to their advice, it also shared statistics from an Anthropic report that were pretty revealing. The fact that 43% of human AI interactions reveal that most users are not asking AI to be an augmentation of their intelligence. They're asking AI to perform a task for them. Think it through and do it for me. I don't even want to be part of that activity. That's pretty telling, 43%, if that's in fact accurate. The other thing that came out, this is from not Anthropic, but other research, was that many people have always made the argument that, the last human advantage that will keep us, humans distinct from machines is judgment. And yet, what do we see? We see AI creeping into many, many different areas where judgment is required. And healthcare is probably the biggest example of that. There was a time when no one would have said they would be willing to deal with a AI driven, take AI medical advice. There are many examples now where people say, I would love to be able to do that. If I have some kind of minor issue, I don't want to have to go in and see a doctor or even get on a health, a Zoom with a doctor. I would rather just be able to put my symptoms in, explain what's going on, and then have AI prescribe something simple for me that can take care of it. More people are willing to do that than previously thought. So I think judgment is even at risk to some degree. So I think the author makes a pretty good case. Now, his advice, company leaders, and this is good advice. I agree with this completely. It kind of goes back to the last article we were talking about. Company leaders need to understand which tasks and responsibilities are most likely to come under pressure, and then focus their efforts on developing those things and in essence enterprise up the intelligence level and chart a course that will allow them to survive. And I mean that's a pretty strong statement, but I think he's making a really good point. Don't try to differentiate yourself on those things which we know are ultimately going to be automated. Focus on those things that give you differentiation, that give you value, that give you a purpose for existence, and then take it all the way to bright. So yeah, it's another kind of startling and dramatic article similar to the piece we just talked about. This was not talking to the young people entering the workforce. It's talking to the companies that are out there, any company that has measurable work that they do, which is almost all of them. And I think it's just raising the bar of what ultimately will be automated.
Yep, I agree. So lots of interesting perspectives. And like I said before, this article is very rich. So I encourage everyone listening to take a look at it yourself, because there's a lot of really good stuff in there.
Yeah.
We're going to move over to the next article here, which is from TechCrunch. And, we've had one article talking about Sam Altman again. Here's another one, but Sam's not in such a great light. It's from TechCrunch. Sam Altman addresses the bumpy GPT-5 rollout, bringing 4.0 back. So, as you know, recently we've had ChatGPT-5 released, and there's been countless numbers of posts that I've seen just on LinkedIn, and also talking with other folks about their experiences with ChatGPT-5 and the fact that they're lamenting that you can no longer choose a model because evidently they had in prior usage really got comfortable with asking specific types of questions to specific models and felt that the output was what they were looking for. Now, the GPT-5 model is sort of magic in terms that it has a router that will tend to determine whether you're asking a hard question or an easy question, and then send it off to the quote appropriate model on the back end to support that kind of inquiry. So tell us what's going on.
Well, people like choice. People like the ability, even if they're using it for free, which many people are. I'm one of them. We like choice. We like to be able to pick the model that we want based on our experience with it, or what we feel like, a particular model is better at doing. And that was maybe the biggest misstep they took here, is they removed that choice and they said, hey, GPT-5 is the best thing we've done. We're going to allow it to pick the right model based on your prompt. And that backfired a little bit for sure. And many people are passionate about 4.0. They want that model. They want access to that model back. And so Altman has hinted that he may bring that back. He's gotten such backlash from that. But I think the funniest thing about this article is the so-called chart crime that came about. And I never heard that term before, but now I understand what it means. They showed a chart that had been generated by GPT-5 to show how much faster the response time was, and even with thinking, how it's faster, it's more efficient than the previous models. But the chart was like completely disproportionate. It made it lower numbers. The bars were higher than bars with higher numbers associated with it. So it was just totally inaccurate and wrong, and really pretty embarrassing for ChatGPT-5 or for OpenAI. And Altman's been a good sport about it, and he's acknowledged that it was a mistake, and that they essentially kind of dumbed down GPT-5 in order to get it to do the right thing. And they've realized what they did wrong, and they're going to fix that. So that's funny. But now I've added a new hip, LLM era phrase to my vocabulary, which is chart crime. Anytime anyone shows a graphic that is clearly wrong, not just a little bit, but grossly wrong, you can say that it's a chart crime.
There we go.
There you go. There's our public service contribution for the day.
Exactly. So our next article, we're going to jump into is Forbes. And we talk about folks who are looking for jobs and how AI has been used to filter resumes, candidates' resumes as they're coming in, and look through them and sort them before a human even gets the chance to evaluate them, which then leads to folks basically in an arms race leveraging AI to fit their resume and experience to the job that they're applying to. Well, this article addresses that specifically. It says, AI got you the job. Now it's getting you fired. Tell us what happened.
Well, here's the dilemma. So what if you use AI to get a job? It writes your resume, it fills out the application for you, it finds the right opportunities. Then you get the job and you find out that you're not the right fit for it. I mean, this is a very real possibility in the world we're in, because a lot of evaluations of candidates are being driven by AI. So AI got you in, AI evaluates and figures out that you're the best fit, and yet it's not really understanding what it is that makes you tick and if you have the right soft skills, for example, to do the job and to do it the right way. So the author of this article asked the question, are we automating ourselves out of authenticity, alignment, and accountability? It's a fair question. And I think soft skills are ultimately going to have to be a front and center for people certainly entering the workforce, but anyone who's re-entering the workforce later in their career and they want to go find another job. We have to be careful about letting AI do all the work for us. I think it's very common that resumes are going to be written by AI, but we have to bring our skills, our soft skills forward. Make sure that the company that we're trying to get a job with understands them and values them, and that they acknowledge, not the bots, but the people at that company acknowledge that we have the skills and the capabilities they're after. The author made some really good advice to employers and to job candidates in general. He says, first of all, don't delegate fit to a bot. So don't let AI tell you what jobs are best for you. Learn how to prompt. Boy, that's a big one. We all have kind of, fumbled our way into prompt engineering, and some of us are better than others. But, the author says it really does make a difference how you prompt. So learn how to do that. He says to employers, and I love this advice, hire for story, not just syntax. So story sessions are becoming the norm, where they get you in an interview and they say, tell me about a time when you had a past decision that went wrong, or you had a moment of growth. I mean, things like that. Let the candidate tell stories. That's going to tell you a lot more about a person than a resume that maybe ChatGPT wrote for them. And then it just mentions what I've already said about elevating soft skills. I think that is so important. And I think the development of soft skills is equally important. And we've talked in previous podcasts about that, about how higher ed has got to emphasize that. They've got to teach critical thinking. They've got to teach people how to be more adaptable, resilient, flexible in different scenarios. I mean, there's so many things that I think young people entering the workforce need to learn how to do. And that's going to make them, I think, more effective in a world that is heavily machine centric.
Yeah. One thing that I took out of this is the fact that if an organization of any kind does not do what I believe is the bare minimum of interviews, this could happen where you have someone who's fit, the AI has fit to the specific job role, and you as the interviewer or you as the hiring manager, because let's face it, people are going to work with people and report to people within an organization. And so it's imperative, not just the soft skills of the interviewee, but the interviewer, to be able to take that into consideration and actually look at their resume and ask the hard questions and think about, is this person skill set going to be a fit for me? And let me ask some of those difficult questions that I know they're going to face within my organization to see how they react. So this is something that certainly could be taken care of in the interview process, which, as I just mentioned here, Deloitte has been doing for some of their client-facing roles, which makes perfect sense to me, especially as someone who's hired people over the years. So, all right, let's go to our last article. This is from Financial Express, and the article is called "Inflection Points for IT." And this is something that I think a a lot of folks have seen over the years, especially if you've been in IT, and that's the roller coaster of the highs for IT when there's not enough people to be able to fill the roles, and then the lows for IT when nobody wants you anymore, no matter how skilled you are. So this article indicates how TCS laid off 12,000 employees as part of their restructuring. And a lot of it had to deal with the fact that things are clearly changing, and the model for how they go to sell their work is also changing. Walk us through it.
Well, everyone's been asking the question for a long time: has the sun set on labor arbitrage? Is that going to go away? Is that going to be much less important to companies, even the mid-sized companies that still offshore work? I think, this certainly is something that's noteworthy. 12,000 people laid off by TCS. However, it's only 2% of their total workforce. So that's a pretty small percentage. And it's just one example. If the article mentioned 5 of the large IT firms that have huge workforces in India, and all of them had laid off 10, 15,000 people, I think we would be nodding our heads more emphatically about, wow, maybe labor arbitrage is coming to an end. But this is just one example. I do think that it will continue to change and evolve. I mean, automation has become part of what the offshore team, have to embrace, and most of them have. I think that's pretty table stakes now for anyone that wants to offshore something, to India, for example. But the capabilities of digital workers, or agents, if you will, continue to advance so rapidly that you've got to believe that at an increasing pace, it's going to make more sense for companies to do work, onshore or wherever their IT structure is. Maybe it's in a data center offshore, but they're going to be doing it with AI agents versus humans. I remember, Michael, back when I started in this industry, which was 2018, not that long ago, but we used to say back then to our customers or prospects that, think about this: a digital worker, an RPA bot, the cost of that is about a third of the cost of an offshore human worker. And that's a pretty compelling advantage to think about work that could be moved to RPA. Well, with AI agents, you've got to imagine that cost continues to go down even further.
And the capability continues to get more, right? You have more capable agents.
More capable, more work, faster work. I mean, so I think at some point it will be foolish for companies to think about moving massive amounts of work that they do today to continue to let humans, for the most part, do that and just move it offshore to get a cost advantage when they can automate it or let AI agents do the bulk of it at a reduced cost, and in some cases higher accuracy, more efficiency, et cetera. So it's definitely notable. Let's keep our eyes on the industry and on India in particular, with the hundreds and hundreds of companies that have very large labor arbitrage teams there. And if we start seeing more and more of this, then I think we should revisit the topic, because I think maybe that will be the bigger signal that the sun has set.
Agreed. Well, as we all know, we always have the links to these articles in the show notes, so we encourage everyone to read them. And every week we have a wonderful guest that's on who brings their insights about our market that we're going through now as the world of AI and automation is changing. So until next week, we'll see you later on the Pulse Check.